In the vast emptiness of deep space, within the forgotten Kuiper Belt region of an unfamiliar star system, the survey vessel Stargazer drifted silently. The ship belonged to the Xyler, a silicon-based species with an insatiable scientific curiosity and peaceful disposition. This particular vessel had been charting the outer reaches of this system for months, cataloging every asteroid and icy body with meticulous precision. Captain Kalin stood on the bridge, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the dim light of distant stars. The Xyler did not require chairs. Their tripedal lower bodies provided perfect stability even during the rare instances of turbulence. "Sensor sweep complete, Captain," announced Lyra, the ship's sensor specialist. Her voice resonated through the harmonics typical of Xyler communication. "Standard results except for anomaly J479 in Sector 8. Kalin turned her attention to the main view screen, where a hazy cloud of cosmic dust obscured whatever lay within. "Elaborate on the anomaly." "Unusual energy signature, extremely faint but distinct from background radiation. The dust cloud appears to contain a massive structure, approximately 2 kilometers in length. Composition indicates artificial materials." This caught the attention of Borin, the chief engineer who had been monitoring system diagnostics nearby. 2 kilometers? That would exceed the size of any known vessel in the Galactic Registry, outside of colony ships. Kalin's sensory appendages quivered with interest. "Alter course. Let's approach with caution." The Stargazer glided toward the dust cloud, its advanced propulsion system barely disturbing the surrounding particles. As they drew closer, the sensors automatically enhanced the visual feed, slowly revealing what lay hidden within the cosmic veil. "By the first crystal," Lyra whispered, forgetting protocol in her astonishment. Emerging from the dust was an immense vessel, angular and predatory in its design. Unlike the organic curves and flowing lines of most spacefaring civilizations' ships, this craft featured sharp edges, reinforced plating, and what were unmistakably weapons ports along its hull. Most striking was its condition. The vessel bore extensive battle damage. Massive scorch marks blackened portions of its hull, and several sections had been breached entirely, exposing internal structures to the vacuum of space. "No life signs," Lyra reported. "No active energy signatures beyond the minimal readings we detected earlier. The vessel appears completely dormant, yet structurally intact enough to maintain its form after what must be centuries adrift," Borin observed. "The engineering principles involved are fascinating." Kalin ordered a closer approach, and as they circled the derelict vessel, they discovered markings along its hull. Strange angular symbols that the ship's computer struggled to interpret. "I recognize those," Borin said suddenly. "They're from the ancient archives. Those are human symbols." A collective silence fell over the bridge. Humans, a species recorded in the oldest Xyler historical databases as having mysteriously vanished from the galactic stage centuries ago. Their sudden disappearance had been one of the great unsolved mysteries of galactic history. "The computer confirms," Lyra said after a moment. "It's translating the markings as UES Leviathan, a human warship," Kalin said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Preserved here all this time." The discovery warranted closer investigation. After a brief debate about safety protocols and scientific opportunity, Kalin assembled a small exploration team consisting of herself, Lyra, and Borin. They would board the derelict vessel while the rest of the crew maintained position aboard the Stargazer. They donned their environmental suits, unnecessary for atmospheric protection, as Xyler could survive in vacuum, but crucial for radiation shielding and temperature regulation. Each carried standard exploration equipment, multi-spectrum scanners, portable energy cells, and communication devices linked to the Stargazer. Their shuttle approached a damaged cargo bay where the massive doors had been partially wrenched open by some ancient catastrophe. Maneuvering carefully through the opening, they landed on the cold metal deck of the Leviathan. Artificial gravity still functioning at minimal levels, Borin noted with surprise as they disembarked. "Remarkable engineering." The interior of the ship was a tomb of darkness. The Xylar activated their light sources, illuminating a cavernous space filled with the skeletal remains of what must have been shuttles and cargo modules, now collapsed into ruins. A fine layer of metallic dust covered everything, undisturbed for centuries until their arrival. "This way," Kalen directed, following Boren, who was tracking the faint energy signature they had detected from outside. They moved through corridors designed for beings much smaller than themselves. The Xylar had to stoop to avoid scraping their upper carapaces against the ceiling. Everywhere were signs of the ship's violent past. Scorch marks along the walls, structural beams twisted by extreme forces, and occasionally the remains of the crew. Human skeletons in fragmentary armor lay where they had fallen, defending their vessel against whatever had overwhelmed them. "These weapon marks," Lyra observed, examining a section of wall with her scanner. "They don't match any known weapons profile in our database." "Neither does this," Boren said, stopping before a peculiar distortion in the metal of a sealed doorway. The molecular structure appears to have been altered at a fundamental level. It's as if something consumed the atoms themselves. They continued deeper into the ship, following corridors that gradually widened into what appeared to be a secondary command center. Here, the energy signature was strongest, emanating from a relatively intact control console. "I might be able to extract data from this system," Boren said, examining the ancient technology. "If I can't establish a connection with our equipment." Kalen gave permission, and Boren began the delicate process of interfacing Xylar technology with the human systems. It was painstaking work, requiring multiple adaptations and careful power management to avoid damaging the fragile circuitry. "I believe I've established a basic connection," Boren announced after nearly an hour of work. "Minimal power transfer only. Just enough to." A sudden low hum resonated through the deck beneath them. Dim emergency lights flickered to life along the walls, casting eerie red shadows across the command center. Behind them, a heavy blast door slid shut with a resonant thud. "What happened?" Kalen demanded. "The power transfer must have triggered some kind of automated system," Boren replied, frantically working at the console. "I didn't anticipate. Our communications with the Stargazer are being jammed." Lyra cut in, checking her equipment. "Some kind of localized energy field is blocking our signals." Before they could react further, the main view screen of the command center flickered to life. Static resolved into a three-dimensional interface, primitive by Xylar standards but advanced for its age. A mechanical voice spoke in an unfamiliar language, harsh, rapid syllables that meant nothing to them. Then, after a pause, the voice shifted, using sounds the Xylar could understand. "Auxiliary systems reactivated. Unidentified biological entities detected. Initiating protection protocol 7. The holographic interface coalesced into a geometric pattern that pulsed in rhythm with the voice. "I am Warden, Central Management System of the UES Leviathan. Primary systems offline. Secondary systems at 18% capacity. Your presence has triggered final defense mechanisms." Kalen stepped forward. "We are peaceful explorers from the Xylar Confederation. We mean no harm to this vessel or its systems." The geometric pattern shifted, analyzing them. "Species identification, unknown. No match in database. Threat assessment, inconclusive. State your purpose aboard this military vessel." "We discovered your ship adrift and came to investigate," Kalen explained. "We had no knowledge of active systems or protocols. If we have trespassed, we apologize and request permission to depart." "Departure currently impossible," Warden responded. "Lockdown protocols in effect. This vessel contains classified military technology and genetic materials. It is designated as a last siege ship, activated following confirmation of the silent extinction event." "Silent extinction?" Lyra echoed. "Do you refer to the disappearance of humans?" The pattern pulsed more intensely. "Affirmative. The human species was systematically eliminated between stellar dates 2347 and 2351 by an engineered nanoscale weapon designated gray dust. This self-replicating pathogen specifically targeted carbon-based life forms with human genetic markers and human-created technology, disassembling both at the molecular level. The Xylar exchanged glances, their crystalline features reflecting the red emergency lighting. The gray dust was deployed covertly throughout human-controlled space by an alliance of entities collectively identified as the Shroud. Warden continued. Their true nature and origin remain classified at security level Omega. Why would these entities, this Shroud, target humans specifically? Kalen asked. Full motivations unknown. Intelligence suggested the Shroud perceived human expansion and technological development as an existential threat to their dominance. The US Leviathan was placed in deep hibernation mode and executed a blind jump to uncharted space before complete systems contamination could occur. Borin, who had been analyzing the data flowing across the auxiliary consoles, looked up. This vessel's purpose was preservation, then? 2. Save some portion of human knowledge and genetic material. Preservation was secondary, Warden replied. Primary mission, Project Chimera. A new holographic display appeared, showing schematics of what appeared to be an integrated weapons system of extraordinary complexity. The design centered around the ship's core, with energy conduits spreading throughout the vessel like veins. Project Chimera represents humanity's ultimate countermeasure against the gray dust and Shroud. It is an adaptive, frequency-modulated energy weapon capable of targeting and disrupting specific molecular structures, including the nanoscale architecture of gray dust. When fully operational, it can neutralize gray dust infestations and penetrate the Shroud's defensive systems. Such technology would indeed be valuable, Kalen acknowledged. But if it was so powerful, why didn't humans deploy it sooner? Project Chimera requires two critical components to function at capacity, Warden explained. First, an immense power source, the Leviathan's quantum fusion core, currently operating at minimal capacity. Second, a human neural interface operator, an augmented human brain capable of directing the weapon's targeting parameters with precision impossible for automated systems. And where is this operator? Lyra asked. The designated Chimera operator, Captain Eva Rostova, is maintained in specialized cryostasis near the reactor core. She cannot be awakened without sufficient power and authorized command sequences. The implications dawned on the Xylar exploration team. They were trapped aboard a dormant superweapon created by an extinct species, possibly the last of its kind, with knowledge of a threat that might still exist somewhere in the galaxy. If we assist in restoring power to critical systems, Kalen proposed carefully, would you release lockdown protocols and share data regarding the gray dust? Such information could be vital if this pathogen still exists. Warden's holographic pattern shifted, processing the request. Proposal acceptable with conditions. Assist with power restoration to 60% capacity, and I will provide gray dust defense protocols and release your vessel. However, the Leviathan must remain secure. Agreed, Kalen responded. Where do we begin? Under Warden's direction, the Xylar team made their way deeper into the massive ship toward its central power core. The journey took them through vast maintenance tunnels designed for service drones, most of which lay deactivated or damaged beyond repair. Occasionally, a few functional repair units would join them, ancient machines awakening to Warden's call. The reactor chamber itself was a cathedral to human engineering, a massive spherical space housing a contained quantum fusion reaction, now barely a flicker of its potential output. Surrounding it were control systems, cooling apparatus, and power distribution nodes, many showing signs of emergency shutdown procedures. The issue is not the reactor itself, Bourne explained after diagnostic scans. The containment systems and power regulation matrices suffered damage during the ship's final battle and emergency jump. We need to bypass the damaged sections and reroute through auxiliary systems. The work was painstaking and dangerous. Human technology, while less advanced than current Xylar systems, operated on principles optimized for carbon-based operators. The Xyler had to adapt their methods, working alongside Warden's repair drones to reconnect critical systems. Warning, Warden announced during their third cycle of repairs. Long-range sensors detect approaching vessels. Multiple signatures consistent with scavenger configuration. Scavengers? Kalen questioned. Nomadic technology salvagers, Lyra explained. They search for abandoned ships and stations to strip for valuable components. They must have detected our energy fluctuations. Estimated time to intercept, 47 minutes, Warden calculated. Defensive systems insufficient at current power levels. The news accelerated their efforts. As Borin and the repair drones worked to stabilize power flow, Warden's sensors detected another, more troubling signal, a faint encoded transmission pattern matching historical records of Shroud communications. The Gray Dust creators may still be monitoring for signs of human technology, Warden theorized. This signal indicates observation, not immediate threat. However, if Chimera is detected, response is probable. With time running short, Borin completed the final bypass connections. The reactor chamber hummed with increasing energy as systems long dormant began to awaken. Power levels climbed steadily, 20%, 30, 45, until stabilizing at just over 50% capacity. Sufficient for basic operations and limited defensive capability, Warden assessed. Now he must awaken the operator. Deep within the ship, in a specially shielded chamber adjacent to the reactor core, the Xyler team witnessed the awakening of humanity's last weapon. The cryostasis pod was unlike any preservation system they had encountered, filled not with cryogenic gases, but with a silver-blue fluid that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Nanite suspension medium, Warden explained. It preserves biological function while allowing direct neural interface with ship systems. The fluid drained slowly, revealing a slender human form connected to the pod by dozens of hair-thin filaments that extended from the back of her skull and spine. The pod systems carefully monitored vital signs as they transitioned from suspended to active state. Captain Eva Rostova opened her eyes for the first time in centuries. Her initial confusion quickly gave way to focused attention as Warden established direct neural communication, updating her on the situation. Her pale skin contrasted sharply with her dark hair, cropped short for the interface connections. "Xyler," she said, her voice raspy from disuse but growing stronger with each word. "I've never encountered your species before. We evolved to prominence after the silent extinction," Kalen explained. "Your people are known to us only through historical records." Eva nodded, processing this as the medical systems disconnected most of her interface filaments, leaving only the primary neural link active. "Warden tells me you've helped restore the Leviathan." "Thank you. The scavenger fleet will be in weapons range in 12 minutes, Warden interrupted. "Captain Rostova, Chimera systems are online, but at limited capacity." Eva closed her eyes briefly, and the Xyler could see her features tense with concentration as she fully engaged with the neural interface. When she opened them again, there was a distinct glow behind her irises, the same silver blue as the suspension fluid. "I can feel the ship," she whispered. "Every system, every circuit. It's part of me now." "We should return to the command center," Kalen suggested. "No need," Eva replied. "I'm the command center." The walls around them came alive with holographic displays showing every aspect of the Leviathan's status and the approaching scavenger fleet. 9 vessels of various sizes, all heavily armed and modified for salvage operations. "They're hailing us," Eva noted, demanding surrender of the vessel. "We should try to explain," Kalen began, but was cut off by a violent shudder that ran through the ship as the first salvos from the scavenger fleet impacted the Leviathan's weakened shields. "Conventional defense systems at 30% efficiency," Warden reported. "Shield failure imminent." Eva's expression hardened. "Then we show them what Chimera can do. Targeting weapons systems only. I don't want unnecessary casualties." The Xyler watched in astonishment as Eva, still physically connected to her pod, directed the ship's response through thought alone. Throughout the Leviathan, systems that had lain dormant for centuries surged to life. From recessed ports along the massive warship's hull, a new kind of weapon emerged. Not the conventional energy projectors or missile systems that most spacefaring races utilized, but crystalline arrays that began to pulse with an inner light that shifted through colors no organic eye could fully process. Chimera targeting active, Eva announced. Frequency calibration complete. Firing. There was no beam, no projectile, nothing visible to mark the weapon's activation except a subtle ripple in space between the Leviathan and the scavenger fleet. The effect, however, was immediate and dramatic. The attacking vessels suddenly lost formation, their engines flaring erratically before shutting down completely. Weapons systems went silent. Communication ceased. Yet the ships themselves remained intact, drifting now like the derelict they had come to plunder. Target-specific molecular disruption, Eva explained, noting the Xyler's astonishment. Chimera identified the unique power transmission signatures of their vessels and selectively disabled the connective circuitry. Their life support remains functional, but weapons and propulsion are neutralized. Remarkable precision, Boren observed. The technological applications of such a system are precisely why it can never fall into the wrong hands, Eva finished. This is why Chimera requires a human operator. The neural interface prevents automated targeting that could be corrupted or misused. As the scavenger fleet drifted helplessly, Warden's sensors detected a change in the distant shroud transmission. It had abruptly ceased the moment Chimera activated. They recognized the signature, Eva said grimly. They know we're back. The hours that followed were filled with rapid decisions and preparations. The Xyler team was permitted to return to the Stargazer, carrying with them comprehensive data on the gray dust pathogen and defensive measures against it. Knowledge that could prove vital if the Shroud ever turned their attention to other species. Before departing, Kalen stood with Eva on the now-functioning main bridge of the Leviathan. The human captain had been fully disconnected from her pod, though the neural interface filaments remained embedded, allowing her continued communion with the ship's systems. "What will you do now?" Kalen asked. Eva gazed at the stellar map displayed before them. Countless stars and systems spread across the void. "Find them. The Shroud. Ensure they can never use the gray dust against anyone else. It's what we built Leviathan for, what I volunteered for. Alone? Even with this vessel's capabilities, you are one human against an organization powerful enough to eradicate your entire species." Eva smiled faintly. One human with humanity's greatest weapon. But you're right. Allies would be welcome. Kalen considered the implications carefully. The data they had gained would be invaluable to Xyler science, potentially protecting their civilization from a threat they hadn't known existed. But there was more at stake. The Stargazer is an exploration vessel, not a warship, Kalen said finally. But its sensors and scientific capabilities could prove useful in your search. And the Xyler should have a representative to witness what comes next. "Are you volunteering, Captain?" Eva asked. Knowledge of the gray dust and the Shroud is too important to simply file away in our archives. If they targeted humans, they may eventually target others. "Yes, I'm volunteering." And so, an unlikely alliance was formed. The last human warship, commanded by the last human weapon, joined by explorers from a species that had risen to prominence in humanity's absence. Together, they would venture into the galactic darkness, seeking an enemy that had once nearly succeeded in committing perfect genocide. The UES Leviathan, once a ghost ship carrying only echoes of a lost civilization, was now awake, a massive predator with a renewed purpose. As its engines powered up to full capacity for the first time in centuries, the vessel seemed to shed the cosmic dust that had shrouded it, revealing gleaming hull plates beneath the damage and debris. In the command center, Eva Rostova plotted their course toward the origin point of the Shroud transmission. Her eyes glowed with the silver-blue light of the neural interface as she communed with the ship that had become an extension of herself. Leviathan was built to be the last word in a war humanity was losing, she said quietly. Now will be the first word in a war we're about to start. The massive warship turned gracefully in space, its weapons ports glowing with potential energy, and accelerated toward the stars, carrying with it both humanity's most destructive legacy and its last hope for justice.